Kevin Mahoney from Raging Chicken Press.
I am Colleen Fitzgerald from A Home Stony Run.
And we're going to try to do this little thing here called Free Range. It's going to be a collaborative podcast talking about food, politics, local community.
Community building and the resistance.
There you have it.
Man. Or maybe community building as the resistance at this point.
A lot of places you have these kind of, lines between issues that you talk about. And when we tend to talk about stuff, we tend to kind of connect everything from, land use to local farms to global politics, right?
It's all interconnected.
Colleen does awesome stuff with food. If you have ever followed her Instagram account, like looking at her Instagram account is like having a meal. So,
and I use it as a scrapbook. So when I cook, that's where I keep my information for my recipes that I build off of it. So yeah, you get to see all the nuts and bolts. My mom cooked. So I come from, and we moved around a lot. So my mom learned a lot of different cooking styles in all the different places that we lived and flavors that she loved that I grew up on. And even if it's in your backyard, this one place we lived in had rhubarb, growing everywhere. And she would just make, this rhubarb compote, and she would make fresh bread. And it makes you centered, at least for a moment, when you eat good food, you're there eating this food. And then when you start to think about where it came from, that's when you can start to think about the community that's around you, or not. If your food's not coming from within your local community, then where is it coming from? So I think what I want to get out of this is just getting people to look a little more closely at the ground that they actually walk on. And that's what I've tried to do with my writing, is to bring it back to your immediate space and who does affect you on the daily, and how do they affect you, and that there are faces and lives behind the dishes that you have at the table. So there's people at the table with you that made it possible for you to eat. And I think that now especially that's something that we really have to start thinking about in terms of community and in terms of resistance, because who are the people that who are you ultimately depending on, to be there with you, and who are these people that are going through these experiences with you that you don't really think about?
You just think about the fracking issue alone. You have this thing in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is at the forefront right now, right, of being the target, right, for mass extraction, right, which it just seemed a way of highlighting both all these interconnections, right, between kind of policy and politics and the lived conditions of people in rural communities and the food that we eat and the water that we drink, right,
and the beer that we drink. Because that affects your beer.
Exactly, right? And all this stuff. Even tax policy for that matter. Right across the board. And so, hopefully that what we're going to be doing here on Free Range is to kind of, allow that space for these connections, right? And we'll kind of as a starting place with food, right? A starting place with food and community and land and people.
The way that our conversations usually go, we don't focus on just one issue, but then we go off on the tangents, and I think the tangents are where it gets really interesting.
I would agree. I would agree.
These conversations around higher education and just education in general, I think that this hyper-specialization is one of the things that is allowing politicians to say that this stuff is obsolete, because people aren't like even beyond interdisciplinary, like they're not even thinking beyond like this one thing that they have to spend all their time and energy thinking on, because you have to publish, you have to conference, you have to do all these things, and it's just on this one thing. And I think that like diversity of thought in education is something that like we should really maybe start talking about more, because I think it's really hurting. Like you're digging your own fucking grave.
Kevin's fault. He made me drink a beer for the podcast.
Oh well, I'll totally blame it on you. Like I don't know what happened. Kevin did it. I swear to Christ, 50% of what I do, probably higher than that, turns into a fucking Lucille Ball skit. I think this is going to be fun. Vive la Resistance.
So there you have it, folks. Free Range Podcast debuts Wednesday, June 13th. Free Range is a collaborative podcast between Kevin Mahoney from Raging Chicken Press and Colleen Fitzgerald from Home Stony Run. So tune in wherever you get your podcast. Like us, give us reviews. That's Free Range Podcast, Wednesday, June 13th. And we'll see where this goes.
Wait, what? I couldn't hear you. My head was in the fridge.